I was standing in my penthouse office on the 63rd floor when my phone rang. The view of Chicago looked calm under the morning light, but the words I heard shook me harder than any enemy ever had. "Sir, she named you as the father." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My grip on the phone loosened as if it had turned to ice. 6 months had passed since Renata and I signed our divorce papers. 6 months since she walked out of my life without a backward glance. 6 months of silence. Now a stranger from Northwestern Memorial Hospital was telling me she had given birth, premature, complications, unconscious. And she had written my name. I felt the floor under my feet become hollow. My world, built on steel, power, and fear, suddenly didn't feel as stable as it once did. "Prepare the car," I told Luca, my head of security. My voice felt strange to my own ears. Too tight, too human. On the way down the private elevator, memories hit me in fast flashes. The first time I saw her at a gallery, the way she ignored me 3 times before agreeing to dinner, the way she laughed when she finally trusted me, the way she stopped laughing near the end. I had chosen power over presence, territory over time. My empire grew, but my marriage drowned under it. The Bentley cut through traffic, but my thoughts moved faster. Father. Me. The words didn't fit. I had never imagined raising a child. My father had raised me with fists and fear, and I had sworn I would never become him. I built an empire to avoid his shadow, not to create a family. But this wasn't a plan I could control. This wasn't a deal I could negotiate. When I stepped into the hospital, everything slowed. The smell of disinfectant, the sound of rushing nurses, the weight of uncertainty pressing on my chest. A nurse led me to the NICU. My heart pounded harder with every step. I had faced rival families without blinking, but now my palms felt damp, my throat felt tight. When the doctor told me Renata was in a coma, something sharp twisted inside me. I remembered her signing the divorce papers with a face carved from stone. I remembered her saying she wanted nothing from me but freedom. Now she had given me something neither of us planned. Then he showed me my son. 4 pounds. Tiny, fragile, fighting for every breath. His skin looked almost see-through under the soft blue lights. Wires and tubes covered him like a web. I didn't know what I expected, but the sight of him destroyed me. A nurse told me I could touch him. My hands suddenly felt too large, too dangerous. These were hands that had signed orders, moved millions, ended men. How could I touch something so small without breaking it? But I reached in anyway. His fingers curled around mine. A spark shot through my body. Warm, real, something I couldn't explain or ignore. For the first time in years, the ice around my heart cracked. Bianchi. The weak voice behind me sliced through the moment. I turned. Renata sat in a wheelchair, pale and exhausted, but her eyes were still the same. Sharp, direct, unafraid. Even half-conscious, she looked at me the way no one else dared. "I didn't want you here," she said, her tone flat but steady. "They called you against my wishes." Quote, the nurse tried to explain something, but I lifted a hand and she understood. "This was between us. You gave him my name," I replied. My voice was low, controlled, but the storm inside me was anything but calm. She looked away, fingers twisting the blanket on her lap. I was fading in and out. They needed a name. I gave yours. 6 months, I said quietly. 6 months you carried my child without a word. Her eyes snapped back to mine. The spark in them was familiar. The same fire that once drew me to her. "I didn't owe you anything," she said. "Not after you made it clear your empire meant more than our marriage." Her words hit hard because they were true. The tension between us filled the room, thick enough to taste. Anger, hurt, something else we both didn't want to admit. The doctor returned with more updates. Medical terms blurred together as I focused on keeping my expression cold. Strong, unshakable. Inside, I was coming apart. Hours passed, like minutes. I stayed beside the incubator, unable to pull my hand away from my son's tiny grip. When the DNA test results came 3 days later, I didn't need to open the envelope. I already knew. I saw myself in him from the first moment, and I felt something new. Something dangerous. Something I didn't yet have a name for. The days that followed settled into a strange rhythm. I spent every morning in the NICU with my hand inside the incubator, letting my son curl his fingers around mine. At first I told myself it was for stability, for the machines, for the nurses, for control. But the truth rose in me every time he squeezed my finger with surprising strength. I needed it. I needed him. Renata stayed at the hospital too, though she kept her distance. She spoke to nurses instead of me. She asked for updates through staff instead of directly meeting my eyes. We stood on opposite sides of the incubator, like two ghosts bound to the same world but refusing to touch it. One afternoon I broke the silence. "We need to discuss security." Her tired eyes lifted to mine. For the first time since the divorce, I felt something behind her gaze that wasn't anger. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was something heavier. Fear. Not for herself. For our son. "My enemies?" I said quietly. I didn't need to explain more. She understood the world I lived in, even if she never wanted to be part of it. She had once told me my shadows were too wide, too dark, too consuming. Now those shadows reached toward our child. "We'll talk about it later," she said. Her voice softened just a little. "He needs a name first. The nurses keep asking." A name, a claim, a future. I thought of the traditions of my family. Names passed like weapons, weights, and expectations. Legacies built on fear. I refused to hand that burden to him. "Antonio," I said after a long silence. She blinked, surprised. "Your uncle in Florence?" "He chose a different life," I said, "one outside the family business." Her expression changed. Something warm flickered through her eyes. "You remembered," she whispered, "that gallery in Florence. The sculpture garden." I remembered every detail of that honeymoon. Peace, art, her hand in mine, a world where I wasn't the man I had been shaped to be. But the moment passed as quickly as it came. "We'll need papers," I said, falling back into old habits. "Arrangements, living quarters, security." Her jaw tightened. "I'm not moving back into your world." "You live on a first floor with street access," I replied. "Your windows face a public park. Anyone could." "I don't want your money, Salvatore." "You think this is about money?" The frustration I kept buried finally cracked through. "This is about safety." Between us, the machines kept beeping in steady patterns. Our son's heartbeat. Our son's breath. The reminder that everything had changed. 1 month. That's what she finally agreed to. 1 month until he left the hospital. 1 month to figure out a future neither of us planned for. But enemies didn't wait a month. On the 5th day, my conciliar told me what I feared most. "The Genovese family has been watching hospital records," Paulo said. "A child carries power. A new heir shifts alliances." I knew what that meant. A threat had been made. By the 7th day, Antonio was strong enough for limited skin-to-skin contact. Nurses showed Renata how to hold him against her chest. She cried silently while he slept on her heart. I stood in the doorway, unable to move. When the nurse said I should try, I almost refused. My hands didn't look like they should hold something fragile. My life didn't look like it should fit moments like this. But Renata surprised us both. "Just support his head," she said softly. Her voice wasn't cold anymore. Not warm either. Just real, honest. Tired. I lifted him carefully. He was so small, so warm, so alive. His heartbeat rested against my chest, steady and fragile at the same time. Something in me cracked open completely. A flood. A shift. A vow I didn't say out loud. I would burn the world before letting anything touch him. But the world moved first. 3 days later, the first threat arrived, disguised as a congratulatory bouquet at Renata's gallery. "Children make us vulnerable. Condolences in advance." My blood turned to fire. I destroyed the card before she could read it. That night, I doubled security around her apartment. then tripled it. But even with guards, cameras, and locked doors, I couldn't ignore the truth. She wasn't safe out there. Antonio wasn't safe anywhere but with me. The breach came sooner than expected. A man with a stolen maintenance badge used the service elevator to bypass the building's guards. Renata was alone with Antonio when the silent alarm went off. Instead of freezing, she grabbed our son and ran straight to the panic room I showed her on our first tour of the penthouse. She sealed the door seconds before footsteps reached the nursery. My security team and I arrived 8 minutes later. I handled the intruders myself. My shirt soaked with blood that wasn't mine, my hands shaking with rage I'd never felt before. When I finally opened the panic room door, Renata stood there clutching Antonio. Her fear wasn't for herself. It was for him, for our son, for the child she had protected fiercely even when she wanted nothing from me. I didn't think. I just pulled them both into my arms, the three of us breathing in the dark steel room. For the first time, I felt what a family might be. Messy, fragile, beautiful, worth everything. And suddenly, nothing in my old empire felt as important as the two people standing in my arms. The attack changed everything. Not just for Antonio, not just for Renata, for me. I thought I knew fear. I thought I understood danger. I thought nothing in this world could shake me anymore. But when I opened the panic room door and saw Renata clutching our son with trembling hands, something inside me shifted. My world no longer revolved around territory or alliances. It revolved around them. That same night, after security cleaned the mess and the house fell silent again, Renata and I sat at the dining table with Antonio asleep between us in his bassinet. We didn't argue. We didn't accuse. We didn't run from the truth anymore. We can't stay here, I said quietly. She nodded. I know. It wasn't defeat. It was acceptance. For the first time since our marriage ended, we agreed on something without resistance. By morning, the plan was in motion. We would disappear. I owned a private lake house in northern Michigan, hidden on 100 acres of dense forest. Only 5 people on Earth knew it existed. It was the safest place I had. The journey happened under darkness. No phones, no digital traces, no predictable routes. Antonio slept against Renata's chest the entire trip, unaware that his tiny life had redrawn the borders of Chicago's criminal world. When we reached the lake house, the silence felt unreal. No sirens, no engines, no city hum, only wind, trees, and water. It was the first moment I had breathed freely in months. The house wasn't luxurious like the penthouse. It was practical. Strong stone walls, big fireplaces, wide wooden floors. A place built for survival, not show. Renata looked around with guarded curiosity. "You built this?" she asked. "For peace," I said, "for a life I never thought I'd have." And there, in that quiet space, our broken marriage began to soften at the edges. The next morning, she walked into the kitchen and found me cooking breakfast. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise when I cracked eggs with one hand and poured her coffee like I had done it every day of my life. "My mother made sure I knew how," I said. "She believed depending on others makes a man weak." Renata looked at me for a long moment, as if trying to see whether the man she married still lived somewhere inside me. We ate breakfast together at the wooden table while Antonio slept beside us. It felt strangely natural. No arguments, no cold silence. Just 2 exhausted parents sharing a meal. Days passed in a gentle, unexpected rhythm. We fell into a routine without discussing it. Morning coffee together. Shared responsibility for Antonio. Evenings by the fireplace. Her laptop open for gallery work. My phone connected to secure lines with my men in Chicago. She asked my opinion on exhibition layouts. I asked her opinion on business strategies. We weren't partners. But we weren't strangers either. The Lake House Library held another secret. Books, hundreds of them. Art history, gallery catalogs, exhibition journals. Renata pulled one from the shelf and froze. "This one has my early work in it." I leaned in the doorway. "I collected them." "Why?" she whispered. "Because your world was more beautiful than mine." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. One evening, a storm cut the power. We sat beside the fireplace while Antonio slept between us. The room glowed orange and quiet. For the first time, she told me about her childhood in foster homes. How she learned independence because she had no other choice. How she feared losing herself in my shadows. For the first time, I told her how my father broke my mother slowly. How I married her because I wanted something good, something real, something I didn't know how to keep safe. "You never talked about children," she said softly, watching the fire. "I was afraid," I admitted. "Afraid of becoming him." Her hand reached across the distance between us and brushed my wrist. A simple touch, a simple moment, but it changed something inside me. Antonio grew stronger each day. His first smile happened on a warm afternoon by the lake. He looked up at us, his big eyes bright, and let out a tiny laugh. Renata laughed too. I couldn't stop smiling. For a few seconds, we were a family without trying. But peace never lasts long in my world. One night, while Antonio slept, I reviewed security footage from Chicago. What I saw made my chest tighten. Men from the Genovese family meeting with one of my own captains. Betrayal. I felt Renata behind me before she spoke. "This is why you kept me at a distance, isn't it?" she said. "Yes," I replied. "I thought isolation kept you safer." "And instead," she said softly, "it broke us." Her words hurt, because they were true. Later that evening, Antonio laughed for the first time. I made shadow puppets on the wall. Renata added her own shapes. We both ended up laughing until our stomachs hurt. It was the first time in years I felt alive. Then the phone rang. My private line. "Only emergencies," I answered. "Salvatore," the voice said, shaking. "They took Carlo. My youngest brother, the only one untouched by our world, a professor, a gentle soul. The Genovese family wanted to trade him. They wanted information about our son." Renata stood in the doorway, holding Antonio. She didn't panic. She didn't freeze. She stepped closer, eyes sharp. "I'm going with you," she said. "No," I said instantly. "It's too dangerous." "You need me," she replied. "I know that warehouse. I photographed it for months. I know every access point." She was right, and I hated that she was right. But this time, I didn't push her away. For the first time, we walked toward danger together. Not as enemies, not as exes, not as strangers, but as two people with something worth fighting for. Our son, our family, our second chance we didn't dare name yet. We drove back toward Chicago in silence. Not the cold silence we once lived in, but a silence heavy with purpose. Antonio stayed at the lake house with my most trusted guards. I hated leaving him, but rescuing Carlo meant eliminating the threat once and for all. I watched Renata in the passenger seat, calm, focused, her mind working through the warehouse layout she knew better than anyone on my payroll. For years, I had underestimated her world. I thought art and beauty had nothing to do with mine. Now her knowledge might save my brother's life. "Why did you really leave me?" she asked quietly as the city lights appeared in the distance. It was the question she never asked during the divorce. The question I never answered. I kept my eyes on the road as the truth finally pushed through my chest. "Because I saw the fear growing in you," I said. "You checked door locks twice, you looked over your shoulder, you stopped laughing. You were becoming like my mother, afraid of every shadow." She inhaled slowly. I still didn't look at her. I couldn't. "My father destroyed her," I continued. "Piece by piece. I thought leaving you would save you from becoming her." When I finally glanced at Renata, her eyes were filled with something I didn't expect. Not anger. Not forgiveness. Understanding. She reached over and touched my arm, the first voluntary touch between us in years. "You should have told me," she whispered. "I didn't know how," I admitted. When we reached the warehouse district, her voice shifted into precision. "The main office is here," she said, tracing a map she sketched by memory on a scrap of paper. "The guards won't expect anyone to know about the maintenance tunnel. It's narrow. You'll need to crawl for part of it. The exit comes out under the east loading dock. You can reach Carlo without triggering alarms. I stared at the map. This is perfect. It's what we have, she replied. Let's go. We moved as a team, silent, quick, focused. We reached the maintenance tunnel entrance behind an old dumpster, just as she described. No cameras, no guards, no motion sensors. I turned to her. You stay here. No, she said. I'm going with you. It's not safe. Carlo is family, she whispered. And you are not doing this alone. The conviction in her voice weakened my resistance. We descended into the tunnel together, crawling through damp concrete and rusted pipes. She led the way without fear. When we reached the end, I pushed the grate up slowly. The warehouse office sat above us. I recognized my brother's voice, shaking, terrified, but alive. We moved fast, 2 guards down in seconds, a third clipped by my shoulder strike, a fourth reaching for his weapon. Before Renata smashed a metal lamp across his head. We grabbed Carlo and rushed him out through the tunnel before reinforcements arrived. He clung to me, shaking. Thank you, he whispered. I knew you'd come. When we reached the car, Renata helped him in the back seat, her hands gentle and steady. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She had saved him as much as I had. We left the district before the Genovese family realized we were ever there. Back at the penthouse, after Carlo was taken to a safe location, Renata went straight to Antonio's room. She lifted our son into her arms, holding him close as if anchoring herself back into the world. I watched her from the doorway, the woman I once loved, the woman I never stopped loving, the woman I finally understood. Later that night, when Antonio was asleep between us, she finally spoke. We can't live like this, running, hiding, waiting, quote. I know, I said, I'm ending it. And I did. For weeks, I shut myself in meetings. I sold territories, cut ties, dismantled violent operations, shifted power into legitimate businesses. Rivals misread it as consolidation. But this was transformation, a way out, a future where fear didn't shape every choice. One evening, she walked into my office and saw the papers spread across my desk. You're changing everything, she whispered. For him, I said, and for you, and maybe for myself. Her eyes softened in a way I hadn't seen since our early days, before I lost her. 3 months later, at a small brownstone in Lincoln Park, we celebrated Antonio's first birthday. No guards, no fear, just family, friends, laughter, light. When the guests left and Antonio fell asleep after his first steps between us, I finally asked the question that sat heavy on my tongue. What do you want, Renata? Not for Antonio. For you. She looked at me with the honesty that once broke me and now healed me. I want presence, she said. Not gifts, not protection that isolates me. I want you, real you, quote. I swallowed hard. My entire life had been built on walls. She was asking me to live without them. I'm learning, I said, slowly, but I'm trying. The months that followed were the proof. Her gallery opened in New York. My new business ventures expanded in Italy. We traveled together as a strange, undefined family. No longer married, no longer apart. One night in Florence, on the terrace of a small villa overlooking the hills, she asked softly, "What are we now?" I didn't answer with words. I took her hand. I pulled her close, and for the first time in years she let her forehead rest against mine. On Antonio's second birthday, we held a private naming ceremony. No legal vows, no rings, just promises whispered in a room full of people who mattered. She promised to understand my instincts without letting them swallow us. I promised to choose presence over power. We promised to build something new. Together. Slowly, truthfully. Our son giggled between us, reaching for both our hands. And I realized then, the life I never believed I could have was already mine.